As a response to the ban, some leaders of SASO, who sought to continue the struggle for black empowerment in the face of apartheid, formed the Azanian People's Organization, AZAPO, in 1978. A black consciousness-based political organization, meaning it emphasizes black pride, self-reliance, and the psychological liberation of black South Africans from the mental shackles of apartheid. The organization believes that black people must reclaim their dignity and reject the ideology of racial inferiority imposed by the apartheid system. It was opposed to any form of integration with the apartheid regime. It rejected the idea of negotiating or collaborating with the apartheid government, and instead advocated for a separate black identity and self-determination for black South Africans. The organization adhered to a revolutionary approach to fighting apartheid. While they condemned the apartheid system, AZAPO also saw the struggle as one of liberation from psychological oppression, and encouraged black people to organize independently of white-dominated structures. This set AZAPO apart from other movements like the ANC, which supported a more multiracial vision. AZAPO was aligned with broader Pan-African ideals, believing in the unity of African people and the rejection of colonial and imperialist oppression. This ideology placed the liberation of South Africa within the larger context of the African continent's struggle for freedom from European domination. Following the death of Steve Biko, AZAPO became a leading voice for the Black consciousness philosophy. The movement and its followers were critical of the ANC's alliance with the South African Indian Congress and the South African Communist Party. AZAPO believed in black self-reliance and the rejection of multiracial negotiations. This led to tensions with the ANC, especially when the ANC was organizing mass actions through the UDF, United Democratic Front, another anti-apartheid organization that grew in the 1980s, who was seen as too conciliatory toward the apartheid regime and too focused on integration. UDF-aligned student organization, COSAS, formed in 1979, was in a crosspath with the Azanian students' movement, AZASM, the student wing of AZAPO during the 1980s. Political divisions among the two organizations eventually lead to violence. According to the Reconciliation Commission, TRC, final report, Volume 3, Chapter 6, Subsection 71 under Inter-Organizational Conflict. The conflict erupted when groups of black consciousness-aligned activists disrupted a rally at Regina Mundi Church in Soweto, which was to have been addressed by Senator Edward Kennedy from the USA. The resulting conflict involved abductions, kidnapping, killings, bombings, and attacks on homes. The ANC's inclusive policies towards non-whites helped garner significant international support for their cause. By advocating for unity and equality, the party attracted widespread solidarity, particularly from global anti-apartheid movements, enabling the ANC to strengthen its resources and operations. The PSC's military wing, POCO, carried out attacks on government installations and white civilians, as the PAC believed in the necessity of violence in achieving liberation. However, after the 1960s, POCO's activities were largely diminished, and by the 1980s, the PAC had struggled to maintain a large and effective armed resistance. AZAPO, like the PAC, supported the armed struggle against apartheid, although it did not have a significant armed wing, like the ANC's Umkhonto we Sizwe. MK. As the ANC gained more support, both AZAPO and the PAC became increasingly marginalized. The ANC emerged as the dominant political force. Pressure from both internal resistance and international sanctions had mounted on the apartheid government, which led to the National Party President P.W. Bota's resignation in February 1989. His deputy, de Klerk, became the new president of South Africa. The apartheid government, which had long used a divide-and-rule strategy, saw the Inkatha Freedom Party, IFP, as a potential ally who could serve as a counterweight to the ANC, and supported the IFP, both financially and militarily, to weaken the liberation struggle led by the ANC. The IFP, led by Dr. Mangosuthu Buthelezi, is a political party that represents the Zulu ethnic group. Buthelezi, who was the traditional prime minister of the Zulu kingdom under the apartheid regime, initially aligned with the apartheid government, believing that cooperation with the government would be the best way to secure the rights and autonomy of the Zulu people. Over time, the IFP became increasingly critical of the ANC, particularly as the ANC pushed for a unified, non-ethnic and non-racial post-apartheid South Africa. The apartheid regime's support for the IFP led to a deeply entrenched rivalry between the ANC and IFP. The state provided weapons, resources and training to IFP-aligned militias, and they, in turn, engaged in violent clashes with ANC supporters. Tensions between the IFP and ANC escalated into violent conflict. Clashes became widespread, particularly in the townships of KwaZulu-Natal and the Transvaal, including Soweto. The violence was often brutal, involving armed militias from both sides. The apartheid state security forces were heavily involved in stoking the conflict. The government would often arm and support IFP-aligned militias to destabilize ANC strongholds, particularly in areas where the ANC had significant popular support. The IFP militias, with the backing of the apartheid police and military, launched attacks on ANC supporters, fueling the cycle of violence. These third-force interventions by the apartheid regime made it difficult for the IFP and ANC to negotiate peace or reach a resolution, as both groups accused each other of being agents of the apartheid state. As the apartheid regime began to collapse in the early 1990s, both the ANC and IFP were involved in negotiations with the government for a transition to democracy. However, the IFP, under Buthelezi, was reluctant to join the ANC-led negotiations for a new South Africa, fearing that it would marginalize Zulu interests. Despite negotiations, the violence between ANC and IFP supporters continued until after the democratic elections of 1994, where the ANC emerged victorious, and Buthelezi and the IFP reluctantly agreed to join the new government, though tensions persisted. White South Africa relinquished their seats in parliament to the ANC, but kept the wealth and power. This brought distrust in the people of Soweto, and crime got out of control.